Hello YouTube, it's Greg, and today I want to talk about the Hebrew letters in Limbus company and what they mean and how they might be correlated to, their symbolism. I guess I should start off with my background in Judaism, right? I have been ultra-Orthodox religious for the first 2 decades of my life. Rabbi Akiva is actually a massive figure in Judaism and it is very, very complicated. But he ended up making a commentary on letters, on the Hebrew letters and what they could mean, what they symbolize, how writing them actually also applies to their symbolism. He talks about different codes, because yes, you could apply codes to the Old Testament. The thing is, Rabbi Akiva lived 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. As you can imagine, not all of his work is the same. As you can imagine, when I say I'm interpreting the letters in Limbus company, I am doing it based off what I know. Additionally, I'm doing this off the top of my head. Like I said, I was religious for the first 2 decades of my life. Well, 2.5. First 2.5 decades. I don't want to be. I did not like religion. I cannot be religious and not happy. And it's a shame I can't choose both, but such is life. And so I don't want to, go back into religious text and relearn all of it. So I'm going to be doing it off all the top of my head. So there are currently 5 layers or levels of ego in Limbus company. Aleph, Vav, Tet, Zion. Let's talk about Tet. Yes, we're skipping Zion egos because it would make more sense when we get to Vav egos. Why? Right? So let's start with Tet. Tet is the 9th Hebrew letter, and it has 2 things toward it. Again, there's many versions, but 2 that I remember is Tit, which means mud in Aramaic. It means like to create, to mold, to form, right? Like man is made out of mud, right? From the dirt of the land. I don't know why Project Moon chose this letter. I really don't. It doesn't make much sense to me. What would make more sense to me is if they chose the letter Tav, which is the very last letter in the Hebrew alphabet, which stands for Ta'ava, desire, lust. But it's more not like lust, like for sex and stuff, or to show your own world to people. It's just general desire for honor, wealth, courage, power to move forward, basically, to grab, right? You have Tav, the last letter, compared to Aleph. Yes, we're going very out of order here. Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it's a very special letter. It is the leader of letters, right? When you see Aleph, it's supposed to... There's a million commentaries on it, so I'm not going to try to get into that. But what Aleph really stands for is the leading, right? The leader, number 1. It is really supposed to be a general who has an enemy in his hand and has his sword ready to swing down, right? And he's supposed to represent domination, victory, and just power, right? I don't want to say it represents the elite because there's another Hebrew letter that represents the elite, and that's Sadi. And Aleph is not the elite, it's the commander. He is very much there for the people, right? But he's also kind of alone and aloof, right? He's above the system. Not really above the system, but the overseer of it all, right? He oversees the pyramid of command, right? Chain of command. And it would make sense why it would be the last tier for ego, right? The ultimate form of ego, the most overwhelming and present, demanding ego there is, right? So that makes more sense. Hi YouTube, editing Greg here. I just realized I forgot one letter. Hey. I forgot about hey, ego. It is the 5th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The shape and the geometry of hey is actually very, very important. And so in both the print and the script, hey has a very little opening here right? And a very large opening at the bottom, right? Small opening at the side, large opening at the bottom. And what that's really supposed to represent is the desire to change. So let's say an evil person is born into this world, because hay is actually supposed to also represent birth. Complicated, very complicated, but anyways. When an evil person wants to change, right, they want to be a good person, they want to become a better person, whatever, it is easier to fall through the big gap, than to get into the small gap above, which is what I'm really trying to say with that is that it is more likely to fail than to actually succeed. Even if a person has all the good intentions of their heart and they really try their best, realistically, an evil person's gonna stay evil. Like, that's realistically. There are, it's possible, yes, but there's a lot more going against them than going for them. That's what it's trying to say. Like, it is so much more easier to fall through the big hole than to go rise up, up and travel to that small hole and pass through it and reach, I don't want to say ascension, but and that's what hay really represents. It's not like a rebirth per se, because reincarnation is also very complicated in Judaism, and topic for another video that I think is actually quite relevant to Limbus company. But anyways, hay doesn't really represent rebirth in as much as change, but it doesn't really represent change either. And it doesn't represent the strive to move forward, right? That's Aleph. It's kind of difficult to put into English words, right? But it's this idea that it takes a lot more to succeed than fail, right? And that's what hay means. Anyways, back with the video. Finally, let's talk about Vav and Zayin egos together. First, let's talk about Vav. By the way, it's also the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So Vav ego, Vav, we need to talk about something else in Judaism, right? We need to talk about how to make something holy, or sacred, right? In Judaism, sacred, like holiness, is nothing really special, I guess. It can be applied to anything, right? What holy really means in Judaism means to be separated, right? To be not cut off per se, because cut off is like more negative connotation. That's more like excommunication realm. But to be separated, quite literally, just you have like 100 something, take 10 off and keep that separated. You can really make anything holy. You can make your firstborn son holy. You can make the firstborn cow holy. Something that needs to just be separated, right? And this is really probably the most practical application of this would be your paycheck. Jews give charity from their paycheck, and depending on how much you earn, typically 1/10. Really rich people, if they say to get more money, they give 1/5, because the more charity you give, the richer you'll be. And that's kind of where the idea of Vav comes in. It is something sealed off and continued, right? It is something that is separated and made holy. It's really about making something holy, right? To make it sealed off, to make it something sacred, which kind of makes sense. Like, Vav, I guess, would be like in the Limbus company ego list, right? It would be something that is a quantitative change, right? Like, between hay and Vav ego is usually like a world apart. So then Zayin immediately follows Vav. It is the 7th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And now the really interesting part of Zayin is that you actually have to know a little bit about the next letter. Chet, or the 8th letter, right? Chet. And Chet stands for sin. It is sin all the way through, right? And so Zayin in script almost has this duality to it, right? It has 2 crowns, right? So you have like the main body down here, right? And then you have the slanted part, the slanted head, right? And then you have kind of like two crowns, right? Like one up going up here and the other going down here, right? And that's actually supposed to resemble, according to Rabbi Kiva, its eyes. Like it's looking towards Chet, like over here, on the crown over here. It's looking towards Chet. And then it is also looking towards Vav to be like holy. And it's like really trying to lean in towards sin, right? It's supposed to resemble a person wanting to do sin. Another thing about Zion that really is really important is actually it stands for Zachor, to remember. And remembering is such a massive theme in Judaism. I don't really want to talk about God, but we kind of have to, right? Um, so when it comes to judgment, like Jews have Judgment Day, right? They believe like not everything in the world, but a lot of things are determined, mainly life and death, right? And so there's kind of this like weird play power dynamic going on, right? But in regards to memory, when we remember our sins, God forgets them. When we forget our sins, God remembers them. And Zion is also incredibly attached to Anayin, Ayin, Ayin, like the character. Yes, it's a Hebrew letter also. Ayin, and stands for eyes. Eyes resemble judgment. When God is looking through at the land, he is judging the land at the harshest capacity. And we do a lot of things to get to move God's gaze away. Like there's a lot of Jewish day-to-day mysticism, that just to get God's gaze away. You know what I mean? Because when God gazes at you, it is a cold day in hell, basically, right? It's going to be terrible. And so, again, like one of the codes you could apply is you could switch the ayin with Zion, because ayin is the seventh to last letter in the Hebrew alphabet. Zion is the seventh to first, right? And so, as you can imagine, Zion is actually like, not only does it represent going towards sin, it also represents this balance between forgiveness and sin, right? Like it is such an intricate balance between like saving the ego and like saving your own humanity and like trying to survive in this like strict judgment of being righteous and human. I'm not sure how much I want to explain because I guess I could go into cultural appropriation and appreciation type thing, but I don't want to go into that either. But like, they're Jewish secrets, so they shouldn't be shared, right? Like, I am so glad that Project Moon just references the Tree of Life without like heavily exploiting it, because like you see some public media, it's not just a wink wink nudge nudge type of thing, it's like full on just rip out Jewish secrets for wholesale and put it on public display, and it's like, yo, what the fuck? Because even amongst Jews, Jewish secrets are secrets, and they just fucking rip it off wholesale, and it's disgusting, right? It's absolutely disgusting. And that's just cultural appropriation whatsoever. Like, there are a few that come to mind, and I do not want to make a call-up post, right? Like, I don't care for it. Like, the damage already has been done, and they're never going to apologize. So be it. And it's like, it's never going to change. It's going to happen for future. And which is why I greatly appreciate Project Moon, and how it's not really cultural appropriation, it's appreciation. Like, the fact they only reference Tree of Light and like the names, they don't talk about its symbolism, why it's important for Jews, how it works, or anything like that. Like, you could look online and find it out, right? Like, again, people ripped out Jewish secrets wholesale. Again, even secrets among Jews, what the fuck? Yes, it's an incredibly sore spot for me. I hate it. Absolutely hate it. And it's like, again, I cannot stress it enough how much I appreciate Project Moon, and I'm just like so glad they did not chose like Hebrew letters for every single thing. Like the fact that it's only in like the ego tier list, and the fact that it is, nowhere else, I greatly appreciate, And I just have to say that, I am glad that there is some good Jewish appreciation because, it's kind of difficult to find Jewish appreciation throughout history and even now. And so I'm like really glad that Project Moon, exists and does it and was inspired by Jewish culture. Alright, thank you. That's it for the video. Bye. Calm down now. So, that's what counts. And now I kind of just want to do a recap. And so from Zion, right, we had judgment. When, let's say Sinclair, Dante is casting judgment on the sinners, Sinclair, right? He is evaluating them for their terrible attributes, like personality traits, their good parts about them, and just like overall judgment day. It's the strictest day, right? And so then you have Tet, right? We're going from Zion, which was number 7, all the way down to Tet, which was number 9. And so we go from 7 to 9, right? And remember, number 9, Tet, is about reshaping, reforming, molding, shaping like a piece of pottery, right? And so we could say that basically Dante, or like through these ego, the sinners are being reformed, reshaped. They are facing their trauma almost. But basically, the reasons why Rodion's ego is Tet is because she has to now face the consequences of her actions, right? She has to step back down. She has to be kind of confront her sins, right? Save the ego by confronting the sins. Yeah. And so finally we have Hey. Hey represents this everything going against you to change, to ascend, right? Everything in the world is telling you no. You cannot. You will stay a sinner, you will stay at the bottom, and you will never go up, right? You will never have that chance to redeem yourself. And then finally, you have Vav. Vav represents to be sealed and to continue, right? So basically, with Vav, the sinners, once they have reached Vav ego, right, they are looking back at their experience. They're seeing their stories. They're re-experiencing their trauma. They have to relive it in their head. And then they have to draw things from it, right? They have to use that terrible experience and they have to explain why it was so terrible. They have to relive it and they have to really analyze it and, live with it and feel comfortable, sitting in their pain, bed sheets and all, and then they have to kind of use all that data they just gathered analyzing themselves and kind of use it to move forward, into Aleph, the pinnacle, number 1, the leader that slayed all its enemies, and they're at the top. They went through their character arc, right? Right. It's the story that Project Moon is trying to tell through the Jewish letters when it comes to risk levels of the ego is very similar to the hero's journey. Right? The hero's journey, there's a reason why the main character has to leave. He goes down, or they go down to like the bottomest, depths, angst, whatever. They confront that, and then, happily ever after. Right, and then just restart it over and over and over again, right? All that fun stuff. And it's really just trying to describe the traditional, typical hero's journey through the Jewish alphabet, right? The Hebrew alphabet, basically. And so I thought it would be cool to go through a sinner and explain how it aligns, right? I'm only going to choose a select few egos because I don't want to go through every single one, and also because I'm going to be stealing this from a Reddit user. He did some pretty cool stuff, analyzing how the sinners resonate with their ego. And so I'm basically going to be just stealing his post. So this is the post I was talking about. This user, Quantex609, nice, leaving enough room for Jesus. But Yeah, link in the description, obviously. Yeah, he did this for Rodion and Gregor at this point. And this was like 25 days ago. He hasn't updated since. But, it was quite fun. His Gregor one, one of the comments in it's actually really good. I do recommend you check out this easier in his previous posts. They are linked right here on the website. But yeah, as it says in this Reddit post, in the series of analysis posts where I examine each sinner, analyze their ego, and explain that concept connects to the sinner. So, first one, branch of knowledge, Zion. This represents the constant sense of duality that Sinclair is stuck between, cursed by the knowledge of evil in the world. And yeah, this is a Zion ego. Zion, remember, is staring between Chet and Vav. Right, it's very much leaning towards Chet, and it is towards sin, and it's very much leaning towards, being good, I guess. Because again, Vav represents the power to take your previous experience and move above, right? So branch of knowledge kind of, in this case, right, it kind of really fits thematically, right? Sinclair is staring towards the good and the bad. Or I don't want to say good and bad because, that's more of a Christian idea, not really Jewish, but he's staring between light and darkness. Again, in Judaism, they don't actually, one is not objectively bad, like darkness is not like an objectively evil, disgusting thing. Light does have more positive connotations, but it's in the beginning, when light and darkness are created, they don't have these like stigmas and biases immediately. So I'll leave it up to you to determine which is the sin and which one is, the redemption, I guess. But this kind of just fits in very well with Zion, right? And so, again, just doing a select few, we're doing an impending day, a doomsday calendar. Doomsday calendar represents dread of the inevitable and the price of avoiding fate. Again, Tet is about facing your actions, right? Facing the consequences of your actions, and being molded and reformed by them, and really having to sit with that, like, I don't want to say disgust and hatred, but that intense feeling that you were so desperately did not want to confront that are just better not to confront, and again, this is perfectly resonates with Doomsday Calendar, Doomsday's calendar is constantly ticking down, and it's the dread of something inevitable that it's quite literally the same thing, it's just like, when is it happening? The only difference between this, this ego, and Tet metaphorically is the timing, right? Doomsday calendar represents it's going to happen in the future, and you have to constantly be aware of it. Tet kind of represents it's happening now, immediately, in the present, Otherwise, they're basically exactly the same, right? So, and then for Hay, I kind of liked Skin Prophet. Skin Prophet represents repressed hatred and the desire for destruction. And here it's kind of like a unique take, because when I was describing Hay, right, I was describing it as you're pulling through the swamp, you're really going through it, and everything in the world is going against you, and you're one of the select few that really got to redeem yourself and ascend, right? But here Skin Prophet kind of offers a unique take to it. Here it represents repressed hatred and desire for destruction, right? He says it perfectly. It's kind of where I'm describing a physical action. What Sinclair is essentially doing is standing still, pushing against the hatred, right? He's not doing something active, right? He's basically being extremely passive, right? Being like a stone, right? Pushing, being a dam against a flood, right? But it kind of conveys the same idea that he will eventually ascend this hatred, right? And he will have decent mastery over it, and he would be able to draw from the experience, which again, really goes well with Tears of the Tarnished Blood, Yinglong. Uh, but basically, he says it really good here. I really highly recommend his stuff. It's great. But basically, he says like Yinglong is connected to yin and yang, and like yin and yang are about balance, right? If one pushes, the other one will push back. They one is constantly turning into the other. It's constantly cycling, right? Um, and so it represents balance, right? With as he says here, without any yin, yin long is incomplete. It only has harmony and light, but no chaos or darkness to balance it out. And this perfectly fits St. Clair, and it also brings up exactly what I want with Vav, right? Vav represents this balancing act of like going through your past experience, drawing from it, going through every single bad moment, right? And you really have to like draw and like analyze and sit with that discomfort, like it's not easy to go back through your old memories. It really perfectly represents this strive to balance what you took out and using that. In Sinclair's case, he was repressing his anger and hay, and now he's able to like sit down and say, okay, when can I use my anger? What can my anger be used for? When is it appropriate? When is it inappropriate? Have I ever lost control of myself recently? And it's like it really well encapsulates this mastery over his anger, right? And desire for destruction. And it just like it really just encapsulates it really perfectly. So I'm really excited to see what Project Moon does for Sinclair's Olive Ego. But yeah, I highly recommend his post. Part 1 with Gregor is also really fun. There's this comment. Yeah, this one right here. This one's like really cool. But yeah, I highly recommend this post. It's fun. It's great. I also hope you like this video. It was quite an interesting take, redoing Vub, that's all that good stuff. But yeah, see you next time. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.